Well, we're just finishing up our UP of Michigan public land hunt, and we only hunted a day and a half. It's 1 o'clock on the second day, and Dylan's going to let me know if something comes over my shoulder, but sad to leave and get out of here. This location, this exact location, I've only hunted a few times. It's very difficult to get into. It takes us a half hour of hard walking from the truck to get here. We see no other people, no signs of people. In 2011, I shot a really nice mature 8-point out here that was close to 150 inches, at least 4 years old, maybe 5. And so that's a special memory here. I've hunted with the kids here. My stepson Dante and then my son Sam and Jake, they've been out in the blind with me here. In 2012, Dante had a really nice 8-point come by a 2.5-year-old. And let's face it, up here in the UP of Michigan, a 2.5-year-old 8-point, there's hunters that go 20 years and don't get a chance at a buck like that. So even to get a 4 or 5-year-old is truly a needle in a haystack up here. So this is a special location. So we dedicated a day and a half here. And it really involves setting up a blind, coming into this location. Now, we could have sat on the ground, but most of it's wet in here. Could have just brought some stools in. But I really like the comforts of the blind, of a pop-up blind. I really wish we could drag our redneck ghillie blind back here. We like using those. About 140 pound zone, 6x6. It would have fit really nice back here. It would have been just horrible to carry back here. But we're using a pop-up, and it brought up some pop-up strategies and blind strategies. Now, most hunters up here, I'd say about 95% at least, are using bait. I choose not to use bait, so I'm in the middle of a lot of bait hunters, and those guys that are hunting with bait are within 3/4 of a mile, half mile at the closest, but 3/4 of a mile away, and I'm really in a central area that was difficult to get to. And for that, we need some stealth. I want to be able to blend back in here, and I want to be comfortable. And we've had a mix of rain and snow, high winds, below freezing temperatures, ice on the way in. And there's a few strategies when locating a blind. Now, I've seen some blind strategies online, and we've even shown some where our blinds are completely hidden. And people will take, and hunters will take these blinds and just brush them in completely. I look at, like, when I come back to a place like this, it's very remote. I just want to pop the blind in, get a good backdrop, and that's the amount of camo I have. These blinds are full of camo on the front side. I really don't want this to blend in as a big box, so I want to make sure I have a good backdrop of conifer, and we have that in this area, or maybe a hill, maybe high grass, low brush, whatever it might be. I want to make sure that this actually blends in and there's no silhouette. And I think as long as you take care of your silhouette, you don't have to spend a fancy amount of time making this blind look really special on the outside with a bunch of grass and conifers and cut limbs, and it blends right in. And I think a lot of times when you're cutting all those limbs down to begin with, you can actually call a lot more attention to it than you want. Let's face it, these deer are not used to seeing people out in the woods here. Any sight, any sound, any smell, and those deer are gone. They do not tolerate anything. So if something looks out of place, I want to blend in. So that's the first thing, blending in. When we get out in our shooting lanes out here, and we're just shooting through black spruce here, which are tall, spindly. These black spruce in here could be over 100 years old, and we have a lot of shooting lanes, but they're little skinny lanes. But when you get back in those lanes 30, 40 yards, you have an extremely difficult time seeing this blind. So we can see out little pieces here and there, 80 to 100 yards in different directions in this little area. And for that, when a deer's coming through here, we're going to see it long before it sees this blind. That buck I shot in 2011 out here, he came in at 40 yards, 30, and then he was looking right at me, and I shot him. And so I think he got into a window where it might have bothered him a little bit. But making sure this blind is not silhouetted is a very important key point. Second, we're hunting a funnel here, and I hunt areas in public land that have a diversity of habitat and create funnels that I can actually go in and hunt a movement that is different than just hunting out in the open hardwoods that might be several hundred acres, an open cedar swamp that might be 1,000 acres or more, a big pine plantation, a big marsh. I want to hunt something where there's a diversity of habitat, and for that creates funnels. And I'm hunting major long distances. It's nothing for a buck around here to hit bait piles 3/4 of a mile away, and let's say if there's a food plot in the same location, this is very vast. and then go back to a bedding area or cruising area that might be 3/4 of a mile to a mile away from that afternoon feeding destination area. So we're hunting major funnels, major deer movement. We're not getting into little precise areas that are right next to a food source. I want to hunt in an area where I'm primarily seeing bucks from 9 in the morning till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So we're hunting these funnels, very important. We're hiding the blind. And then third, downwind has to be blocked. And so because I'm hunting a diversity of habitat, whether I'm blowing my scent into mature hardwoods, a mature pine plantation, or in this case, a wet marsh where the deer don't want to walk through, we have difficulty walking through it. They don't want to, especially when they're crushing ice. Then I can come to the very extreme edge of this funnel, find some low conifer because of the sunlight on the outside of this area. Then I'm getting a lot of conifer growing on the outside. They have their lower limbs, young conifer. And so I can hide on this extreme edge, which happens to be the east edge. So any west wind I can hunt this funnel with. And so I'm not going, a lot of the tracks that we had out here are between 20 and 50 yards in front of us. Real good trails coming through. And in fact, on opening day, we had a spike buck go through and elected to pass him, but he was at about 70 yards cruising through. And he was just in that window where we could get a good shot at him. And you know, of course, again, elected to pass him. But I don't want to be in the middle of that movement. So have to have that good silhouette. I'm on a great funnel. I have a good place to blow my scent back into, and I'm on the extreme edge of the movement so that I'm not placing this blind right in the middle. This isn't Kansas or Iowa or even lower Michigan, you know, in a subdivision type area where you can get away with a lot of movement and a lot of, you know, a blind location that would be more invasive. And because of a lack of true hunting pressure, whether it's, you know, like say in the case of lower Michigan, you have a lot of people. That doesn't mean there's a lot of hunting pressure. It just means that there's a lot of people, and deer actually get used to people. Then you have the areas of Iowa, Kansas, where there's not a lot of hunting pressure at all, and deer seem to put up with a lot of movement, blind locations, blind out in the middle of a movement like this, or even in the middle of a food plot. But when you come up here to the UP, you got to blend, and these are areas similar to northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, areas I've even hunted in southern Ohio, Kentucky, the hills of Kentucky, public land. So areas that are remote, you have to, in areas that are big public land tracts, you have to look for change in habitat. And when you're locating that blind, again, make sure it's silhouetted. It's not silhouetted, make sure it's hidden. Make sure you can blow your scent into a non-deer area, and make sure you're not right in the middle of the movement. If you follow those 4 steps, then I think you'll find success. We've had a lot of success here seeing bucks in the 6 or 7 times that we've sat here, including that monster back in 2011. And it's worth driving 7 hours up here to sit in this blind location. We had a great time. We're heading home, sadly, but at the same time, tomorrow's the opener of Wisconsin gun season, and so I'm not too disappointed, but this is a special place right now, and again, it was worth the drive. Even just seeing that spike buck walk by on opening day confirms that this is a spot I'll spend a lot more time at in the future.